The More Show is in partnership with Ozark Mountain Publishing, taking readers beyond the unexplained.
If you like what you watch, then don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Twitter for the latest updates on The More Show. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel for new weekly television and radio shows.
The More Show is supported by Mindscape, Paranormal and UFO Matrix magazines, available for download on all major digital platforms.
Welcome back. I'm now joined by Marianne Williamson, who is an internationally acclaimed spiritual author and lecturer. She has also been listed at number 30 in Watkins' 100 Most Spiritually Influential Living People in 2013. Marianne is a New York Times best-selling author and has been a popular guest on television programs such as Oprah, Larry King Live, and Good Morning America. She now joins me to share her teachings in her latest book, The Law of Divine Compensation, on work, money, and miracles. Good evening, Marianne.
Good evening. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure to have you on. It was a bit of a tongue-tie there just to get the introduction in. Thank you for coming on the show, because I know how you're a very busy person.
Well, I am, but I appreciate your giving me the opportunity to be on your show.
How do you, sort of remain so centered with all the work that you're currently doing?
Well, I'm not sure that I'm centered 24 hours every single day. I have my moments when I'm not, but how I stay centered in general, I am a student of A Course in Miracles, and the workbook of the Course amounts to a meditation path. We all live in a very stressful world these days, whether we are busy, actually, or not. There's a kind of constant barrage of modernity, it seems to me. And I am a big believer and a practitioner in the value of meditation. And as a student of the Course in Miracles, making that practice my time with God, my time searching for inner peace and the life of wisdom and contemplation that comes from within rather than without, puts you in contact and puts you in a place of experience of a peace which the world does not give you, and a sense of an ordered universe that the world often does not give you. And to me and to everybody else I know, this makes all the difference in the world.
As you said there as well, Marianne, is that prayer and meditation, is very key to you, isn't it? I mean, this is an important part of, I suppose, being spiritual.
I think it's the crux of being spiritual, is finding that place within yourself and then seeking to act on the guidance and the illumination that you receive there.
Now,
the voices of the world can be deceptive. The voice of reason alone, outside a larger context, can be deceptive. Voice of the ego mind, and that's why we meditate, to find that small, still voice inside ourselves, which is sort of drowned out by the voices of the world if we're not careful. And that's why we meditate. We do spiritual exercise just like you do physical exercise. You do physical exercise to hone your material and biological muscles, and you do spiritual exercise to hone your attitudinal muscles. You do physical exercise so you can move, and you do your spiritual exercise so you can achieve the capacity to be deeply still. And that capacity to be deeply still inside ourselves, as any of us know, leads us, it gives us impulse control. It gives us a more reflective and contemplative and wise way of being. And it gives us inner peace.
But you would say, though, that you're a student of, comparative religion as such.
Yes. I'm a student of a set of books called A Course in Miracles, which is not a religion, but it is a psychological treatise that is based on the universal spiritual themes that are at the heart of all the great religious teachings of the world.
Yes, that's right. And would you say then that you one of your quotes as well, if I can just mention it, it's basically saying that to find God, you don't need to be religious as such. You can find God through other means. For example, through just being.
Well, I don't know about the just being part, but the issue is that religious dogma and doctrine, I think people are looking for something experiential today. The idea of belief is not the issue. The idea of experience is the issue. And as we know, religious doctrine and dogma can do as much to separate us as to unite us. But the experience of compassion, the experience of forgiveness, the experience of love, that's the spiritual meat of all religious truth. And of course, the ego mind, the destructive mind, can use religion for its purposes. So yes, my field and also my interest, personally, is in spiritual experience, not necessarily religious doctrine or dogma at all.
No, that's right. But you obviously, you in your work, you do talk about God a lot, and
Oh, I didn't say it's not. I don't. I'm not one of these people who thinks you can talk about a spiritual path and leave God out. No,
Yeah.
I'm not. The idea of a higher power, by whatever name we call it, I think is essential to a genuinely spiritual path.
yes.
So, the Course in Miracles is certainly centered on the finding and extending the peace of God. But that is very different than dogma or doctrine.
Okay, so to yourself, Marianne, what is the law of divine compensation?
The law of divine compensation is a phrase that I use to describe an aspect of universal law. And that has to do with the fact that the universe is both self-organizing and self-correcting. In nature, for instance, the embryo becomes the baby, and the acorn becomes the oak tree, and the bud becomes the blossom. Obviously, nature has a way of organizing itself. But nature also has a way of correcting itself. In the physical body, for instance, the physical body is born, that invisible force, by whatever name we give it, that made that embryo, all the cells divide and become a baby. Once the body is born, the heart continues to beat and the lungs continue to breathe and so forth. But if there is illness or injury to the body, then through the auspices of the immune system, the body begins to heal itself. So in nature, in ultimate reality, much like in a GPS in a car, if you take the wrong turn, the GPS automatically recalibrates. So my book, The Law of Divine Compensation, is about the fact that whenever there is diminishment or lack on a material plane, there is enough spiritual substance that is infinite to compensate for the material lack. And I think that's very important because so often we live our lives based on what we perceive in the mortal world. So then when we're lacking something, for instance, money, or there's a recession and we're having a difficult time, we don't have a job, we don't have money. When you live a spiritually rather than materially focused existence, you realize that while in the material world there can be lack, in the spiritual world there is never lack. And as you stand on the spiritual and know that in love there is no lack, in your living the life of your calling, as God would have you live a life of your calling, which is to love and be loved, and to extend peace and to extend compassion and to extend forgiveness, then what happens is that in time we invoke the abundance that cannot disappear. And to know that the universe works that way, that even if there's material lack in my situation at this moment, there are ways through my own energy, through my own attitudes, through my own perspective, which then determines my behavior, to invoke abundance. Now, some people would say that this is nonsense because what about a starving child in Africa?
Yeah.
Some people would say, what are you saying, that the child in Africa is starving just because they don't love enough? And that's not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying they're starving because we don't love enough. I mean, if the industrialized nations of the Western world decided among themselves that we would eradicate global poverty within 10 years, it absolutely could be done. So the problem is absolutely a lack of love.
And
and
sharing.
That's really what the book is about.
And sharing as well. I mean, sharing's part of the problem as well. We just don't want countries, and there's a lack of sharing as well.
And lack of sharing is a lack of love.
Yes, absolutely. But what about some of these gurus who talk about, okay, so yes, there's the issue of the starving children in the world, for example, but some of these gurus talk about, the souls of these children have come down to sort of show a mirroring back to humanity, in a sense, of their own lack of love.
Well, it could be argued that that's their karma, but that doesn't get me off the hook for my own karma. It might be their karma as either an advanced soul or whatever to give me that opportunity, but the point remains the same. That doesn't give me an out. That's a very slippery slope when sometimes people would say, because it is their job to show us that therefore I don't have to do anything?
Well, that's right. Yeah, that's how I've always felt when they've said that, actually.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of that, this kind of ersatz spirituality. There is no genuine spiritual path that would ever give you a pass on addressing the suffering of other sentient beings. And it might be their karma to be poor, but it's my karma to try to help.
Absolutely. And so basically, we have to then be careful of the channel that we want to create. So for example, if we go out there because we think we want to get a job for a job's sake, or we want this or that, really it's more beneficial for us to say, okay, well, how can I best serve the world?
Exactly.
How can I best serve mankind? Wouldn't they get more out of life if they looked at it from that perspective?
Well, not only more out of life internally, but ultimately, I think in many cases, more out of life externally as well. In the East, there's the concept of your Dharma. The idea, if you go back to the embryo becoming the baby, right? The invisible force by which the cells know how to divide, and the cells know what to create, that somehow those cells have a natural intelligence, which programs them to turn into lungs and heart and stomach and skin and brain and so forth. Well, we all have it, or the acorn is programmed to become the oak tree. The spiritual concept is that all of reality, including you and me, is inwardly programmed to reach the highest level of our creative manifestation, the highest potential for creative manifestation. We are programmed with that. And the problem, and the cells have a natural intelligence which tell them what to do, like in the embryo. We have a natural intelligence that tells us what to do as well. But prayer and meditation, and that which quiets the mind, puts us in touch or in conscious contact with our natural guidance system. The world leads us to forget our guidance system, and that's exactly what a cancer cell is in the body. A cancer cell in the body is a cell that has gone insane. It is a cell that has disconnected from its natural intelligence. It's not doing what it is there to do. It goes off on its own. It forgets its collaborative function and exists in competition rather than collaboration. And in that sense, the entire consciousness of the human race has become malignant. So the idea of Dharma is the idea that you don't see yourself as a lone wolf. You're not out to just do your own thing, which too much of the West has adopted, this idea that I'm here just on my own. But we, just like cells in the body, when we realize you're not here to live just for yourself. You are here to collaborate with others who themselves have their own perfect programming and functioning. And when I'm living my highest direction and guidance, and you're living your own direction and guidance, then we collaborate in service to a greater whole. And the individual, just like the cell that forgets that, becomes destructive of self as well as the entirety.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, Marianne, we're just going to take a quick break there, so stay tuned. After the break, the phone lines will be open for you to speak to spiritual author and lecturer Marianne Williamson, or share your opinion. You can call us on 0292 000 3666, or text your comments and questions to 07728 758 759. Remember, international listeners outside the UK must Skype the show by adding the More Show Live.
The More Show is in partnership with Ozark Mountain Publishing, taking readers beyond the unexplained.
Visit themoreshow.co.uk/shop to purchase products and services from your favourite past guests. If you're new to this site, you can also catch up on the previous television and radio shows through YouTube and the More Show website.
The More Show is supported by Mindscape, Paranormal and UFO Matrix magazines, available for download on all major digital platforms. Broadcasting from the studios of Radio Cardiff, you're now watching The More Show.
Welcome back. I'm now joined by internationally acclaimed spiritual author and lecturer Marianne Williamson, and we've been discussing her book, The Law of Divine Compensation on Work, Money and Miracles. Welcome back, Marianne.
Thank you so much.
You know, it's really an honour to, like I said before, to have you on the show, because you know, I know your time's so precious, because you're doing so much with helping people as well, because you founded the Angel Food Project in Los Angeles. That's right, isn't it?
Well, back in the 1980s, I don't know how the timing went in England, but that's when it really began to. The AIDS crisis began to burst on the scene in the United States.
Yeah.
So, yes, I founded, along with other people, many other people who worked very hard on this, to form something. I'm sure you have the same kind of thing over there, a Meals on Wheels program for homebound people with AIDS. Yes,
that's right.
Which
yeah.
now serves 1,000 people a day with all kinds of life-threatening illnesses. So it's a wonderful project and has been lovingly kept alive in service to people who need it. It's a beautiful thing.
Which for you was not a job, it was a calling, wasn't it?
Absolutely. I'm one of those very privileged and fortunate people who can say that all of my career is an ability and an opportunity for me to do that which I love best every day. And that's what we want our careers to be. And that's why there's a chapter in the book called Job versus Calling. You know, we think in terms of a job that's outside us, that already exists, that we have to go get. But a calling is something that arises organically from a field of energy inside us, which has to do with what we were talking about before, this idea that we all have gifts.
Yes.
We all have infinite potential for brilliance. And we don't find that outside ourselves. We find it inside through not only the prayer, the meditation, but also the attitude of service and devotion that we ask in our hearts to be used for a purpose higher than ourselves. And when that's our attitude, then our energy shifts from ambition to inspiration, and we find our Dharma, we find our calling, and it is a miraculous unfoldment. And I assume you feel that way with your radio work.
Well, it's funny you say that, because we were backed. We were backed by Dolores Cannon in the end. And you know, one thing I learned very quickly doing this radio show, because we've set up what is a version of Coast to Coast in the UK, and I didn't realize at the time, but it's not just enough to do what you love to do. It's also got to be a benefit to others. But at the outset, I was so immersed in the business plan, I didn't see the benefit for others except for just doing the show as we're doing now. But there was a much bigger benefit to others from when we set ourselves up at Radio Cardiff, which is the station we're syndicating from, because it was a massive help to the station. So I have to agree with you that when it's a benefit for others and when you're doing what you love, when those two come together, well, the universe will only work for you.
And I also think that at the deepest level, what we really want, what we really yearn for, is to be of benefit to others.
Yes.
You know, if you pray to be shown the way you can live the happiest, best, most wonderful life, you don't end up thinking, well, that would be to be a bank robber. You know, all of us are inwardly guided to be of service. That's what we all really want. We want to feel that our lives are meaningful. Now, sometimes we don't realize, and we think, oh, the money would make me happy, or something else would make me happy. But the feeling that we're really wanting is the feeling of completion, and sometimes we might think the money would give it to us. but it's really that feeling of living on purpose. And when we are living in that space, then the opportunities to do that arrive. And I think that all of us, like you said, we might not realize it, but if you think of anything that you really would yearn to do, whether it's that you do a radio show you love or anything else, how could it not be of service to other people?
Yeah, it's just a natural progression, isn't it?
Right.
But that's what I like about your work as well. It's very inner work. You're very about the soul.
Well, I think that's the biggest work we do. And, that which is within us is foundational. That which is within us is the level of cause. And that which is outside is the level of effect. I was reading a quote from Thoreau today that said, for 1,000 who hack away at the branches of evil, there is only one who is striking at the root. And that's what many of us do. We keep trying to change the externals. But the externals, just trying to change the externals in life, once you realize that everything that we experience on the outside is just a projection, it's just a reflection of our own consciousness, then you realize that trying to change your life only by changing the externals is like going up, you're watching a movie and you don't like what's happening in the plot, so you go up to the screen to try to change it. Well, of course, you can't change anything on the screen. The screen is nothing more than a screen. So doing the inner work, changing your thinking from fear to love, is the same thing as saying, I'm changing my thinking from the attitudes that lead to chaos to the attitudes that lead to that natural organizing principle of the universe. The difference between you and me and the embryo and you and me and the acorn is that you and I can say no. That natural programming in the embryo or the natural programming in the acorn, one doesn't get the sense they have free will in this. You and I do. You and I can follow love or our natural programming, or we can think without love, which is like the cancer cell separated from its own native intelligence, which then throws us into chaos, because it means we live, at that point, we begin to experience ourselves in a chaotic and meaningless and disordered universe. And there are no amount of pharmaceuticals that can fix that. No amount of antidepressants can fix that.
No.
And that's what we're all yearning for, is a sense of meaning, like we live in a universe that makes sense.
Do you think we can trick ourselves into what we love? For example, like, an atheist, must love his work or her work, yet is it the same
I don't
love?
think the belief in God is the issue. There are people who hate who believe in God. So God himself is not mocked on that. It's about experience, not belief. There are some atheists who are very loving people. There's a line in the Course in Miracles where it says, some people conspire with God who do not yet believe in him. So I can see an atheist being happy, and I can see a so-called religious person being miserable.
Right.
Whether or not you believe in God is not the issue. Whether or not you love people is the issue.
And see a connection with us all.
Because in loving people, that is the experience of God, whether you believe in him or not. There's a line in Les Mis, to love another person is to see the face of God.
Absolutely. So, you can make money from love then?
Well, I think that any time that we are living lives of love, we are putting ourselves in the space of the natural organizing principle of the universe. And the natural organizing of the principle of the universe nurtures life. And so I think we are naturally programmed in that sense to live on a material level that will naturally unfold in a way that promotes within us our capacity to live at the highest level of our creative potential. I think the reason to have money is to not have to think about money. And I think that's how much the universe wants us to have.
Yeah, okay. That's yeah. No. I get it. I do. It seems so simple, doesn't it?
I know. Well, one of the lines in the Course in Miracles is really interesting. It says, complexity is of the ego.
Is that right? Complexity.
And it
is
also
the
says
ego.
love restores reason, and not the other way around.
Because life doesn't have to be complex, does it?
No, when you think of your happiest moments, the happiest moments in your life, were they complicated?
No, they were not. No, they were not. That's right. That's right. And you know, some of the New Age spiritual gurus can, you know, make it a bit complicated sometimes, when it can, you know, the undermining essence of the message, you know, it is pretty straightforward. I mean, love is the answer, isn't it?
Absolutely. Do you have children?
Not yet.
Anybody who spends time around an infant, you know, you just see the love. And I think sometimes what's, you know, and this is the bittersweet irony of the human condition. You know, you see little children, and just how naturally they love. If they just weren't exposed to what we've created, everything would be fine.
Well, that's what it comes to, having to unlearn a lot of what we've learned.
That's right, and that's what enlightenment is. Enlightenment is not a learning. Enlightenment is unlearning. It's an unlearning the thinking of the world, which is based on fear, and accepting instead the thinking of spirit, which is love.
But do you think your work is more about transformation of fear, not the rejection of it?
Well, yes, absolutely, it's the transformation rather than the rejection. Because if you're just rejecting it, you're not looking at it, and it has more power over you then. It's what you see and you surrender for healing that can be transformed. If I don't look at something, that's not transcendence, that's just denial.
And, I mean, I want to get more into your book, but I know these are sort of edging into the book as well a little bit. But
it's all the same conversation, you know.
Yeah. But a big part of your work as well, which I do want to just quickly touch on, is forgiveness. Because, you know, it's okay to do what you love, and, you know, all these other great aspects which you're talking about. They really are really fantastic. But you've got to be able to forgive as well. You've got to be able to have forgiven your past and forgiven yourself for whatever may be holding you back as well.
Well, forgiveness is everything. And even talking about the miracle of work and money and divine compensation, forgiveness is absolutely essential, because forgiveness is a place where you let love in, where you have mercy, where you realize people make mistakes, but I am only at the effect of someone else's mistake, or even of my own mistake, if I bring it into the present moment and I make the reality of that material mistake more important to me than the fact that the universe is an endless opportunity machine. In the present moment, it's like we were talking about the GPS recalibrating.
Yeah.
The universe is always ready to compensate for any lack. The universe is always ready to correct any mistake, as long as my mind is a conduit for love. So any unforgiveness is a deflection of the miracle, or the shift back to love, that would automatically occur if my heart were open to love. That's why in the Course in Miracles it says you can have a grievance or a miracle. You cannot have both.
Right. And you can just forgive. I mean, if the other person's not there to forgive, you know, in the flesh, for example, you can just, you know, quietly forgive them out by just saying the words, "I forgive you, I release you," for example.
Well, I absolutely, their being physically present does not matter, but we don't want to suggest glibly that forgiveness is just as simple as saying, "I forgive you, I release you." Sometimes it's like, after you've said it 1,000 times, you know. Forgiveness is not always easy. Forgiveness is often a process. But from a Course in Miracles perspective, the point is that only love is real. Love is our ultimate essence, and everything else is a mortal hallucination. So when other people make mistakes, or we made a mistake, because sometimes the person we most have to forgive is ourselves, the mistakes we make are on the material plane. And once you realize that the material plane is not ultimate reality, the spiritual plane, in which all is perfect, is ultimate reality. And even if a mistake has been made, if I'm willing to live in the present, which is new possibilities, opposed to the past when the mistake occurred, and to stand on the ground of infinite possibility brought about by love, then forgiveness means I'm making the space in my heart for the universe to then correct whatever damage someone's mistake might have done.
Okay, well, we're going to take a short break, and don't forget the phone lines are now open for you to speak to spiritual author and lecturer Marianne Williamson or share your opinion. You can call us on 0292 000 3666 or text your comments and questions to 07728 758 759. International listeners outside the UK may Skype the show by adding The More Show Live.
The More Show is in partnership with Ozark Mountain Publishing, taking readers beyond the unexplained.
If you like what you watch, then don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Twitter for the latest updates on The More Show. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel for new weekly television and radio shows.
The More Show is supported by Mindscape, Paranormal and UFO Matrix magazines, available for download on all major digital platforms. Broadcasting from the studios of Radio Cardiff, you're now watching The More Show.
Welcome back to the show. I'm still currently joined by international acclaimed spiritual author and lecturer Marianne Williamson. Marianne, welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on this last section here. Just before the ad break there, I was just going to ask you as well, in regards to people judging, etc. Just because someone has, I'll use the word, in sort of quoted brackets, had a sort of big success, for example, or they've experienced lots of money. We shouldn't judge them, should we? We should celebrate what they've managed to achieve for them.
One of the things I talk about in the book is that some people these days are prejudiced against the poor. That's very obvious.
Yeah.
But there are other people that are prejudiced against the rich. And to be judgmental of anyone for any reason is not only obviously wrong-minded, but it deflects your own good. If I have a judgment of people who have money, then I will subconsciously sabotage my own ability to attract it. And the truth of the matter is, unless you know how someone made their money, like you really know, who are you to judge them? I mean, there are people who make money unethically, and then there are other people who make a lot of money very ethically. The goal here is not for money to stop circulating in a society. There's nothing beautiful about that. The goal is for enough circulation of abundance so that all beings can thrive. So, yes, this pseudo-pure condemnation of anyone with wealth, I think no socioeconomic group has a monopoly on righteousness.
No.
And I think that's important to remember.
No, that's right. And we've got a number of texts that have come in as well, and I'm going to try my best to get through them all as well.
Okay.
And I believe we've got a caller on the line. Caller, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Hi, is that
Hello?
Is that Christine?
It is, yes.
Hi, how you doing? And what's your question, Christine, for the guest?
Well, I'm quite interested in the actual book, The Course in Miracles.
Uh-huh.
And Dr. Helen Schuckman.
Yes.
Do you mind me asking you about that? Because I understand.
Helen Schuckman, the book is, as you know, Helen Schuckman, the book was transcribed between 1965 and 1971.
Yes.
And it was a woman who was a professor at Columbia University in New York City, and as you said, her name was Helen Schuckman. She heard a voice in her head. She called it inner dictation. She would write it down in shorthand, and then it would be printed out, typed out by her colleague Bill Thetford.
Mm.
And it took 6 years.
I was wondering, I understand that she didn't want to be associated with the project until after her death. She didn't want it made public. Is that correct?
No, she was a very private person.
Yeah.
Very private. But the people around her certainly knew who she was. It wasn't like a secret. It just wasn't made, you know what I mean?
She didn't want to make it public. Was it because she thought that would be too sort of self-serving, or
well, the book itself, she felt it was written through her.
Okay, we can only have one more question after this. Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, she felt it was written through her. The book has no author written on it. the material is the material. You take it for what you want. But she did not consider herself in that sense the author. And she was a private person, and like that.
Okay. Excellent, Christine. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, yes, and we've got a couple of texts coming here as well, but
Okay.
I'll get through those in just a minute, because there's just a few more things I'd like to touch on the book as well. In your work, do you talk much about the sort of ego as well, like some other authors have sort of touched on?
Yes, the ego mind in the Course in Miracles. The word ego is used as it was used in by the ancient Greeks. It's the idea of the small separated self. The Course in Miracles likens us to sunbeams thinking we're separate from other sunbeams, or waves in the ocean thinking we're separate from other waves. Now, obviously, there's actually no place where one wave stops and another starts. There's no place where one sunbeam stops and another starts. So on a spiritual level, there's no place where you stop and I start. But the reality of the body within this three-dimensional illusion, which is how Einstein described it, he said time and space themselves are illusions of consciousness. So within this material world that the physical senses perceive, you and I are seen as separate. And that leads us to believe that we are separate from each other, even though in ultimate reality we are not. That false belief that we are separate from each other is what, in A Course in Miracles, is the definition of ego. And that sense of ego self, that I am my body, I am my personal drama, that I began with my physical birth, that I die with my physical death, puts me in an insane relationship to you.
Yeah.
It makes me feel I have to compete with you, when in fact my soul knows that I'm here to collaborate with you and to co-create with you. So it leads me to all manner of insane perception of myself, my relationship to the universe, my relationship to the earth, my relationship to other people, my relationship to the past and the future. And so the transcendence of the ego, by replacing it, by moving, enlightenment is a transition from body identification to spirit identification, enables me to recognize what I do to you, I am literally doing to myself. It will take me the learning device of time to realize that. But it is a completely different ground of being within ourselves that we stand on, whether you perceive as the ego, the idea of my small separated self, or that my body is just a learning device for me to experience myself as one with all things and all people. Now, only the enlightened masters are in that place, all the time. I'm not. But to the extent to which we do achieve that perspective, in any moment when I achieve that perspective, and then because the way we proceed then determines the way we act, I think that we learn from experience if we see that, and to know that our peace will come from loving each other and compassion towards each other and forgiveness towards each other and mercy towards each other.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
That's when you have happy outcomes in life.
But I would, from my own personal, reading your books and knowing of your work before, I would say, you're up there with the with the quite spiritual gurus. I mean, you can't take that away. I mean, your work speaks for itself.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. When I said what I said, I received a bit of news today, and it made me upset. If I when I win, hopefully it's a win for all of us, we've achieved that state of complete enlightenment. Nothing could shake my peace. So,
Yes.
I don't want to diminish myself. I don't think that serves anybody.
No.
But if I was a perfect master, I'd know it, and if I knew it, I would tell you. So if it ever happens, I'll let you know.
Well, I think we're all perfect. And I think it's like one of your quotes in your books. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate.
Right.
Our deepest fear
Right.
is that
And
we
when
are
I was
powerful.
talking about perfection, I just
Your
meant
measure.
we are all internally, obviously, spiritually perfect. I agree with you entirely, and it's a matter of developing the personal self, the persona, the personality, in a way that ultimately we come to express outwardly our perfection at all times, and that's what we're all working towards. That's what the spiritual journey is.
Well, let's put it this way: Oprah Winfrey would not have got you on her show had you not had your work not have spoken for itself.
Well, I appreciate that very much. Yes.
There is. When you met Oprah, let's sort of go in. It's a sort of bit off the cuff, really. But did you find in her presence that she was very centered, very in the moment, or
Yes,
Yeah.
Oprah very much. What you see is what you get.
Mm.
The Oprah on television is the Oprah in private.
Yeah, that's not easy, is it?
She's a very, very, very good woman.
Yeah.
Who I greatly respect and am very grateful to for what she's done for me.
Oh, that's right. And what she's doing for the world as well.
I agree.
I'm in awe when I see her new road shows that she takes on the road. These spiritual shows, or with these great authors like yourself.
Right.
It's just incredible.
Yep.
No, actually, I don't see anyone else doing that. Not like she is.
No,
No.
She has uplifted the world. There is absolutely no doubt about that.
She knows it as well. I think she's doing what she's supposed to be doing right now. That's the thing, and her Christian beliefs don't interfere with her spiritualists. They've kind of joined up. She's interpreted the meanings herself, and I think she's come up with what makes sense to me. I know some Orthodox Christians say you can't do that, but why not?
Well, yes.
Yeah.
I think that the new spirituality is speaking to the mystical truth of all the great religious systems.
Yes.
Jesus himself was not a Christian. Jesus himself did not say you have to be a Christian.
Well, like I've said to other people, I don't think Jesus may not have wanted a religion made after his name.
Well, not the way when you read the books of people like Elaine Pagels, we know that there were the Gnostics in early Christendom, just as there was the branch that became the ecclesiastic tradition. We know that now from the Dead Sea Scrolls, from the Nag Hammadi manuscripts. So what has come to be known as the Christian religion is absolutely not the only interpretation of the life and teachings of Jesus.
Absolutely. And okay, so just to get through a quick text here, because I know we're fastly approaching the end of the show here. Let me just pick out one randomly. Let me see if we can get a good one here. Some of these ones, folks, we've already covered as well. Okay, here's one. Here's one from Sarah in Cardiff, which is where we're locally going out. What is the divine... No, sorry. Hang on, what she... Just having to read this. Okay, love should be our main principle. What shift do we need in the world, in your opinion?
Well, in the world as a whole, we need a completely different ordering principle for human civilization. Right now, we order human civilization according to economic principle. And I believe that we should order human civilization according to humanitarian principle. It should be considered by the advanced nations of the world as completely morally unacceptable that 17,000 children die of hunger, die of starvation every single day on this planet. And that, by the way, is better than it used to be. Those numbers are actually better. So as long as we make economics our bottom line rather than love, we will continue to move in a direction which is less and less sustainable for the survival of the human race. Now, some people say it's naive to believe that you can make love the bottom line. I believe that it's naive to think that we will survive on this planet for another 100 years if we do anything less than that. The way we've treated the Earth, our irresponsibility with nuclear energy, our irresponsibility towards the poorest of the poor. We have 1 billion people on this planet who live on less than $1.50 a day. We have those who starve, about 30,000 people in general, 35,000. We have the 17,000 children. This is insane. Mahatma Gandhi said the problem with the world is that humanity is not in its right mind. And so I believe that kind of radical shift, which, yes, begins with the individual, but then becomes something that we must stand for in terms of our cultures and our countries as well. You and I might get as enlightened as we might get, but if our governments are still behaving insanely,
but that's the
then
thing, isn't
we
it?
have a problem on this planet.
Yes, but that's the thing, that our governments may call themselves Christians, and the Christianity religion comes from love. That's its core concept.
Well, I
is
think
love.
all the great... Wait, I don't think it's just Christianity that
No,
is
no, no.
supposed to
No,
be based on
I'm
love.
just-
I think all the great religious systems are based on love.
Yeah, well, of course they are. Absolutely. That's what I'm trying to personify there, that all the religions are made on love, but yet they may be their religion, but they don't stick by it. They don't stick by the core concept that love is where it should be coming from. That disappears in the moment.
Well, I think that it's also, though, important that we not just point at other people and say, if only they were more loving. That's what's interesting about the path of internal as well as external transformation, is that we always have to make monitoring our own selves our work. And disagreeing with people, yes, and honorably debating people, yes, and being activists in our own countries to make changes, yes, but without pointing the finger and personally demonizing others, even government officials, as though we don't have darkness within ourselves.
Yes, and also to, if we want to see change, be the change.
Be the change and stand for the change in the world, but without personally demonizing others.
Okay.
Because, everybody's got their finger pointing at someone, saying that somebody is the problem,
Yeah.
But the real problem is the pointed finger.
True, and the judging side of it as well. So, what is your website, please?
My website is marianne.com, and I hope that people will go there, marianne.com, or onto my Facebook page or my Twitter, Marianne Williamson, and find out. I will be traveling to Europe this summer, and I hope that people will check out where I'm going to be when.
Well, Marianne Williamson, it's just been such a pleasure to have you on. It's been so interesting, and I can't wait to get you back on again, because we just brushed the surface of one book there.
Well, thank you. I'm very grateful that you had me on, and I'd love to come back.
Thank you so much, and have a great weekend.
All my best to you.
Take
Thank
care.
you.
Lots of love.
Bye.
Well, we've come to an end on tonight's show. Don't forget that you can listen and watch all our past interviews on the More Show's official YouTube channel. Remember to subscribe to YouTube channel for new daily shows. You may also find out more on all past and upcoming guests on the show via themoreshow.co.uk, and do like us on Facebook for the latest updates. So until next time, be safe.
Visit themoreshow.co.uk/shop to purchase products and services from your favourite past guests. If you're new to this site, you can also catch up on the previous television and radio shows through YouTube and the More Show website.